Imagine for a moment that you're standing at the edge of a vast, unfamiliar landscape. You can see only a few steps ahead of you. Beyond that, the path disappears into shadows, hills, and winding turns. You have a map, but it only shows you the starting point, with no indication of the obstacles, the valleys, or the detours you might encounter. It's unsettling, isn't it, to embark on a journey when so much is unknown, when you have to take each step in faith, trusting that there is a destination, even if you can't see it. This is often how life feels. We stand at the edge of a new season, a new challenge, or an unexpected twist, and we're asked to step forward, not with all the answers, not with a clear picture of the end, but with faith as our guide. And friends, this faith isn't blind or naive. It's rooted in the assurance that God, who has called us, knows the way, even when we do not. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But faith is the solid ground beneath us, the confidence that even though we can't see the whole path, we can trust the one who does. God doesn't ask us to know every detail or anticipate every turn. He asks us to trust Him, to believe that He is faithful to lead us, that His plans are good, and that His hand is steady, guiding us step by step. Faith becomes our compass, our map, our light in the darkness. And though we may feel uncertain or afraid, faith anchors us in the promises of a God who never fails. Our journey may be filled with moments of hesitation and doubt, but when we walk by faith, we're choosing to place our trust not in what we can see, but in who God is. Think about Abraham. God called him to leave his homeland, his family, and everything familiar to go to a place that He would show him. Imagine the courage, the surrender, the faith it took for Abraham to pack up his life and set out for a destination he couldn't even picture. Abraham didn't have a roadmap, only a promise from God. And yet he went trusting that the God who called him would also guide him. Abraham's faith became the foundation of a journey that would lead to blessings he could never have imagined, a nation, a legacy, and a promise that would touch generations. His story reminds us that faith is not about seeing the whole picture. It's about saying yes to God, even when we can only see the next step. Friends, that is the invitation God extends to each of us. He invites us to trust Him, to let faith guide our journey, knowing that He goes before us. There will be times when the path feels unclear, when doubts arise and the road ahead seems shrouded in mystery. But faith gives us the courage to step forward to say, Lord, I don't know where this journey will take me, but I trust that You do. Faith allows us to relinquish control, to release our fears, and to find peace in the truth that we are held by the one who created us, who knows every detail of our journey, and who has promised to lead us every step of the way. Let faith be your guide, not because you can see every part of the journey, but because you believe in the God who holds it all in His hands. Faith isn't just for the moments when the path is clear. It's for the moments when the way forward is shrouded in uncertainty, when we feel like we're taking one step at a time into the unknown. Walking by faith means trusting God even when we can't see where He is leading, believing in His promises even when our circumstances seem to contradict them. This is the essence of faith. The willingness to step forward when our understanding fails, when our eyes can't see beyond the next step, but our hearts cling to the truth that God sees the whole journey. Faith calls us to surrender our need to know and to find peace in the one who knows everything. And this is where true growth happens, where our trust in God deepens, not because we see, but because we see, but because we believe in His goodness, His wisdom, and His unfailing love. Consider Abraham once again, who set out on a journey based solely on God's word with no map, no itinerary, and no guarantees except for the promise that God would be with him. Abraham didn't have the details, but he had faith in the God who called him. In Genesis 12:1, God said to him, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." God didn't give Abraham a full plan. He simply asked him to take the first step, trusting that He would guide him the rest of the way. Abraham's obedience in that moment of uncertainty became the foundation of a covenant, a promise that would stretch across generations. It reminds us that our faith, even when it feels small and fragile, is enough to take us through the unknown because our faith is in a God who is faithful. So often, we want to know the whole picture before we step out. We want assurances, we want clarity, and we want to know how everything will work out. But God rarely works that way. He gives us enough light for the step we're on, asking us to trust that He will reveal more in His time. This kind of faith is not easy. It stretches us, it tests us, and sometimes it even makes us question. But it is in these moments when we choose to trust God despite the uncertainty that our faith is strengthened. We begin to learn that God's ways are higher than our ways, that His timing is perfect even when it doesn't align with our own, and that His plans are good even when they lead us through valleys and wilderness. Faith then becomes less about seeing the path and more about knowing the guide. And friends, this journey of faith is not something we walk alone. God doesn't simply call us to trust Him and then leave us to figure it out on our own. He walks beside us, leading us, comforting us, and speaking to us in ways that only our hearts can understand. He gives us His word, a light to our path, filled with promises that remind us of His faithfulness. He places people in our lives to encourage us and to remind us of His goodness when our strength falters. And He fills us with His Spirit, a constant presence that reassures us that we are not alone. God is with us every step of the way, not only guiding us, but also growing us, teaching us to rely on Him more fully, to trust Him more deeply, and to love Him more passionately. So if you find yourself in a season where the way forward is unclear, remember this: God's guidance is always enough. You don't need to see the whole path to move forward in faith. You don't need to have all the answers to trust the one who does. Let your faith be anchored in who God is, in His unchanging character, in His promises that never fail. With every step you take, know that He is there, preparing the way, walking with you, and working out a plan that is greater than anything you could imagine. Let faith guide your journey, not because the way is always clear, but because the one who leads you is always faithful. Faith is such a beautiful paradox. It asks us to trust in what we cannot see, to believe in promises that may not yet have materialized, and to walk forward even when we have no idea what the next mile, the next day, or even the next moment holds. Faith calls us to live in a way that is profoundly counter to our human nature. We are wired to crave certainty, to seek security, to have a roadmap that shows us every turn and every destination. But faith says, trust me, even when the path is obscured by fog, even when it feels like you're stepping into the dark. Faith requires a deep and personal trust in God's character, a trust that goes beyond our circumstances and rests on the knowledge of who He is. And this kind of faith transforms our journey because it shifts our focus from what we can control to the one who is ultimately in control. One of the most remarkable aspects of faith is that it doesn't promise a path without obstacles. Rather, it promises us a companion who will never leave our side. God doesn't say that faith will make the journey easy. He says that faith will make it possible. When we let faith be our guide, we're choosing to surrender our fears and doubts to the one who has already seen every twist and turn of our lives. God knows every valley we'll walk through, every mountain we'll need to climb, and every unexpected detour that awaits us. And He promises to walk each step with us, giving us the strength we need for each moment, the wisdom to navigate each challenge, and the courage to keep moving forward. Faith reminds us that we don't need to know what's coming because we know the one who goes before us. Think about Peter walking on water. When Jesus called him out of the boat, He didn't give Peter a guarantee that the wind would stop or that the waves would calm. He simply said, "Come." And in that moment, Peter had a choice: to stay in the safety of the boat or to step out in faith, trusting that Jesus would sustain him, even in the midst of the storm. When Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked on water, defying the natural world and experiencing the supernatural power of faith. It was only when he looked at the wind and the waves, when he focused on the circumstances rather than on Christ, that he began to sink. This story teaches us something profound about faith. It's not about having a perfectly smooth journey. It's about where we place our focus. When we keep our eyes on Jesus, faith allows us to walk through life's storms with confidence, knowing that He will sustain us, that He will hold us up, even when everything around us seems chaotic. Faith, then, is not about ignoring reality. It's about seeing a greater reality, the reality of God's presence, His promises, and His power. It's about saying, "Lord, I don't know what lies ahead, but I know that You are already there." Faith allows us to move forward with courage, to embrace the unknown with hope, and to face every season with a heart that rests securely in the promises of God. And as we journey in faith, we begin to discover a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that is not based on the absence of problems, but on the presence of God. We find joy that is not contingent on our circumstances, but rooted in the assurance that we are loved, guided, and held by the Creator of the universe. So, if today you find yourself standing at a crossroads, unsure of the way forward, let faith be your guide. If you're facing uncertainty, if you're stepping into the unknown, remember that God doesn't expect you to have all the answers. He simply asks you to trust Him, to believe that He is good, that His plans for you are filled with hope, and that He will never lead you where His grace cannot sustain you. Let faith lead you, not because the path will always be easy, but because you know the one who walks with you. And as you journey, you'll find that faith doesn't just lead you to the destination. It changes you along the way. It deepens your trust, strengthens your courage, and draws you closer to the heart of God, transforming every step of the journey into an experience of His love and faithfulness. Let faith be your compass, your anchor, and your guide, and watch how God takes you to places beyond what you could ever ask, think, or imagine. Faith's true depth is often revealed in seasons of waiting. Waiting is one of the most difficult aspects of our journey with God, and yet it is often one of the most transformative. There's a reason God calls us to wait. It's because He is doing something in the waiting that could not happen if He gave us everything instantly. Waiting isn't a delay in God's plan. It's an essential part of it. God uses these seasons to refine us, to draw us closer to Him, to deepen our dependence on His strength rather than our own. Faith in the waiting is about learning to trust God's timing, believing that His delays are not denials, and knowing that while we wait, He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating things in ways we cannot yet see. It's about surrendering our need for control and choosing to believe that God is faithful to fulfill every promise He has made, not in our time, but in His perfect time. Think about Joseph. God gave him dreams as a young man, dreams that promised great things, leadership and influence. But rather than stepping immediately into that destiny, Joseph's journey took a turn that looked nothing like the dreams God had shown him. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, unjustly imprisoned and forgotten by those he had helped. For years, it must have felt like God's promises were fading further into the distance, as if the dreams had been shattered by the harsh reality of his circumstances. But God had a plan, even in the waiting, even in the suffering. God was preparing Joseph not just to receive the blessing, but to be the kind of man who could carry the responsibility of it. And in His perfect timing, God elevated Joseph to a position where he could fulfill those dreams, not only to his benefit, but to save an entire nation from famine. The waiting wasn't wasted. It was part of the journey that shaped Joseph's heart, refined his character, and prepared him for the blessing God had in store. In our own lives, waiting can feel like an endless season, a place of longing, of hoping, of wondering when or if God will come through. But God uses the waiting to deepen our faith, to grow our character, and to build resilience within us. It's in the waiting that we learn to lean on God fully, to trust His goodness even when we don't understand His timing, to believe that He is working all things together for our good. Waiting teaches us patience, endurance, and a faith that is not shaken by circumstances but is anchored in the unchanging character of God. It teaches us that our worth and purpose are not tied to what we achieve or receive, but are rooted in our relationship with God. The waiting is where God molds us, shapes us, and transforms us into people who reflect His love, His grace, and His wisdom more fully. James 1:4 says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." God isn't just interested in fulfilling His promises. He's interested in preparing us to receive them in a way that glorifies Him. He wants us to be mature, complete, and whole. He wants us to walk into His blessings, not with a sense of entitlement, but with a heart of gratitude, humility, and purpose. And that kind of maturity only comes through the process, through refining that happens when we are willing to wait on God and trust Him, even when the journey seems long. When we wait in faith, we are choosing to say, "God, I trust You to do what is best, and I trust that Your timing is perfect." So if you find yourself in a season of waiting today, hold on. Know that God has not forgotten you. Every prayer, every tear, every moment of longing is seen by Him. He is with you in the waiting, working in ways you cannot see, preparing not only the blessing, but preparing you to fully receive it. Let this season draw you closer to Him. Let it deepen your trust and let it grow within you a faith that is unwavering. Waiting is not a setback. It is a sacred season where God is building something beautiful in you. When the time is right, you will see the fulfillment of His promises, and you will know that the waiting was not in vain. God is faithful, and His timing is always perfect. Let faith guide you, even in the waiting, knowing that He is shaping your heart, preparing your life, and leading you into blessings that are greater than you could ever imagine. Waiting is where faith is stretched and tested, where trust moves from a concept to a lifeline. In the waiting, faith is no longer just something we talk about on Sunday mornings. It becomes the very thing that sustains us, the anchor that holds us when every earthly sign would tell us to give up. God uses waiting as a tool to refine us, to strip away our reliance on our own plans and our own timing. When we're in a season of waiting, it's as if God is whispering to our hearts, "Trust me. Let go of what you think should happen, and let me show you what I have prepared." The waiting is where He invites us into a deeper relationship with Him, where we learn to seek His presence rather than just His provision, to rest in who He is rather than what He can give. It is in these times that we come to understand that God's presence is our greatest reward, and His timing is part of the blessing. Consider David, anointed as king while he was still a shepherd boy. The promise was there, the calling was clear, but David didn't ascend to the throne right away. Instead, he entered a prolonged season of waiting, facing trials, persecution, and hardship. David ran for his life, hid in caves, and endured betrayal, all while holding on to the promise of kingship that seemed so far from reality. Yet in that time, God was shaping David's heart, teaching him what it meant to rely completely on God's strength and guidance. Through the waiting, David developed a heart of worship, a spirit of resilience, and a reliance on God that would define his reign. By the time he finally took the throne, David was not just a ruler. He was a man after God's own heart, prepared to lead God's people with wisdom and humility. The waiting wasn't a detour. It was God's way of preparing David for something far greater than he could have achieved on his own. When God calls us to wait, it can feel like we're standing still, like we're falling behind or missing out. But what we must remember is that God is always working, even when we can't see it. Just because we are waiting doesn't mean that God is idle. He is actively aligning circumstances, orchestrating details, and moving in the hearts of those around us to bring about His perfect plan. The waiting is part of His process, and often it's where the most important work happens. It's where our faith is deepened, where our character is built, and where our dependence on God is strengthened. Waiting is where we are reminded that His plans are far greater than our own, and that His ways are higher than anything we could imagine. In the waiting, God is preparing us not just for the blessing itself, but for the responsibility and purpose that come with it. And friends, let us not forget that while we wait, God is with us every step of the way. His presence in the waiting is a reminder that He is faithful, that He has not abandoned us, and that He is fully aware of every detail of our lives. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage." Wait for the Lord. So this verse is a call to strength, but it's also a reminder that we are not waiting alone. God is with us, infusing us with His strength, encouraging our hearts, and assuring us that His timing is worth every moment of waiting. He knows the desires of our hearts. He sees our needs, and He is committed to bringing His promises to fulfillment at just the right time. Our waiting is not a sign of His absence. It is an invitation to lean into His presence even more fully, So if you are in a season where the answers seem delayed, where the promises feel distant, hold on. God is not finished. He is using this time to mold you, to grow you, and to prepare you for something that will be worth every second of waiting. Let this season be a time when your faith grows stronger, when your trust in God deepens, and when you come to know Him in ways you could never have known otherwise. The waiting is hard, yes, but it is also holy. It is the place where God's work within us matches the work He will eventually do through us. And when the waiting finally gives way to fulfillment, we will see the purpose, the beauty, and the power of God's perfect timing. Faith becomes especially powerful when we face challenges that test us to our core. It's in those difficult moments of hardship, of loss, of disappointment, that faith transforms from a simple belief into a source of strength. When the storms of life hit, faith becomes our anchor, holding us steady when everything around us seems uncertain. In these times, faith is more than just an idea or a doctrine. It becomes the very foundation that keeps us standing. Challenges and trials reveal the depth of our faith, showing us where we truly place our trust. And often it's in these difficult seasons that we realize faith is not about avoiding pain, but about finding peace in the midst of it. Faith teaches us that we are not defined by our circumstances, but by our relationship with a God who promises to walk with us through every valley, to be our comfort in every sorrow, and to be our strength when we have none left of our own. Consider the Apostle Paul, a man who knew hardship intimately. Beaten, imprisoned, shipwrecked, and persecuted, Paul faced trials that would have broken most people. And yet his faith in God only grew stronger. Paul's letters from prison are some of the most powerful testimonies to the sustaining power of faith. In Philippians 4:13, he writes, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Notice Paul doesn't say, "I can do all things because I am strong," but rather through Christ who strengthens me. Paul's strength didn't come from his own resilience. It came from his complete dependence on Christ. He had learned that faith is not about self-reliance, but about total reliance on a Savior who promises to carry us through our weakest moments. Paul's life reminds us that faith doesn't remove our trials, but it transforms how we face them. It allows us to endure with courage, to hope in the darkest times, and to trust that even in suffering, God is working for our good. In our own lives, we may not face imprisonment or persecution, but we face struggles that test our faith, just as deeply. It may be a diagnosis we didn't expect, the loss of a loved one, a financial crisis, or a broken relationship. These are the moments when we feel the weight of the world pressing down on us, when it seems like everything is falling apart. But it's precisely in these moments that faith invites us to look beyond what we see, to believe that God is with us, that He is for us, and that He has a purpose even in our pain. Faith doesn't promise to erase our challenges, but it promises us that God will never leave us to face them alone. In fact, our greatest moments of spiritual growth often come through our hardest trials. God uses the fire of adversity to refine us, to draw us closer to Him, and to deepen our trust in His sovereignty. He takes what the enemy intends for harm and uses it to strengthen our character, to increase our empathy, and to draw us closer to His heart. When we allow faith to guide us through trials, something incredible happens. We begin to experience a peace that goes beyond understanding. This peace doesn't make sense to the world. It's a supernatural gift that comes from knowing we are secure in God's hands. This peace is what allows us to worship in the middle of the storm, to hold on to hope when everything seems hopeless, and to trust that God is still good, even when life is hard. It's the peace that comes from knowing that our suffering is not in vain, that every tear is seen by God, and that He is using even our pain for a purpose greater than we can comprehend. Romans 8:28 reminds us, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This doesn't mean that everything we experience will feel good, but it does mean that God can take even the darkest moments of our lives and bring something beautiful from them. This is the power of faith, to believe that God is at work even when we can't see it, to trust that He is weaving our lives into a story of redemption and grace. So, as you face your own trials, let faith be your compass. Remember that God is with you in every struggle, that He goes before you and stands beside you. Let the challenges you face deepen your relationship with Him, knowing that He is using each one to grow you, to strengthen you, and to make you more like Christ. And let this faith be a beacon to those around you. The world is watching how we respond to hardship, and when they see us standing firm in faith, holding on to hope, and finding peace in God, it becomes a testimony of His power and His love. God doesn't promise an easy journey, but He promises to be with us every step of the way, transforming our trials into triumphs, our struggles into stories of His grace. Let your faith guide you through every storm, trusting that God is not only leading you through it, but is using it to reveal His glory and His goodness in your life. As we come to the close of this message, let us hold on to this truth. Faith is not merely an accessory to our lives. It is the very foundation that gives our journey meaning, strength, and direction. Faith is what empowers us to walk forward with confidence, not because we know every twist and turn of the road, but because we trust in the one who goes before us. It is faith that turns our fear into courage, our weakness into strength, and our uncertainty into assurance. Faith gives us the courage to face each new day with hope, to endure trials with resilience, and to stand firm even when the winds of life are fierce. And when we let faith guide our journey, we are not just following a path. We are walking hand in hand with a Savior who promises never to leave us, who walks beside us in every season, and who has already secured our future. Today, I want to invite you to make a conscious choice to let faith guide your journey. Whatever you are facing, whatever unknowns lie ahead, make the decision to place your full trust in God. Faith is an active decision. It's a choice to say, Lord, I trust you with my life, with my future, with my family, with my dreams. It's a daily commitment to surrender control, to let go of worry, and to believe that God's plans are good, that His timing is perfect, and that His love for you is unchanging. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting in a God who does. It's about resting in His presence, knowing that He is faithful to guide, to provide, and to fulfill His promises, even when the road is unclear. Let this faith lead you. Let it strengthen you, and let it be the anchor that holds you through every storm. And remember, faith isn't just for you. It is a testimony to the world. When you live a life guided by faith, you shine a light in the darkness. You show others the hope that is found in Christ. The world around us is filled with uncertainty and fear, and people are searching for something they can rely on. When they see you walking with peace, with confidence, and with joy, even in difficult times, it points them to the God who sustains you. Let your faith be a witness, a living example of God's goodness, His faithfulness, and His power. Let your life be a beacon that invites others to know the Savior who walks with you. Share your faith. Share your story. And let God use you to encourage others who may be struggling to find hope. This is the power of a faith-guided life. Not only does it transform you, but it has the potential to transform those around you, to bring light into places of darkness, and to draw others into the embrace of God's love. So as you step forward, let faith guide your journey. Trust God's leading, even when you don't understand it. Lean on His promises, even when the road is hard. And remember that every step you take in faith brings you closer to the heart of God, closer to His purpose, and closer to the fulfillment of His promises in your life. Make the choice today to live by faith, to walk with purpose, and to trust in the God who never fails. And may your journey of faith not only deepen your relationship with Him, but inspire those around you to seek Him, to know Him, and to experience the transformative power of a life guided by faith. God's plans for you are good. His path is sure, and His presence is with you now and always. So go forth, my friends, with faith as your guide, knowing that you are held in the hands of a faithful and loving God.